Well, good morning, guys, and welcome to day 4 of the final week of Jesus' life. We're smack dab in the middle of the week right now. It's Wednesday, and Wednesday is one of the more peculiar days of the final week of Jesus' life, because you have the first half of the week starting with Palm Sunday and the triumphant entry, and then he flips over the tables and there's all this chaos going on. And then in the second half of the week, you have the Passover meal, you have the betrayal, the arrest, the crucifixion. But right in the middle of this week, hump day, like we're in the middle of it, it's Wednesday right now, there's very little recorded about what Jesus was doing. We'll get some insight to what other people were doing, but as far as Jesus, we actually have to use a verse that encompasses the entire week for us to really understand what he's doing. So we'll be in Luke chapter 21 and Luke chapter 22, the last two verses of 21 and the first two verses of 22, and we're going to get a picture of what's going on. So let's look. Luke 21, starting in verse 37. And every day he was teaching in the temple, but at night he went out and lodged on the mount called Olivet. And early in the morning all the people came to him in the temple to hear him. So we know that verse 37, where it talks about in every day, like a couple verses before this is the fig tree that we talked about yesterday. We know he hasn't passed yet. We know the crucifixion hasn't taken place yet. So when it says in every day, that encompasses the entire week until he gets taken into custody. So based on that, we can determine that on Wednesday, he would have spent time teaching in the temple. That was his rhythm the entire week. So it's important. You got to hold on to that. And now let's look at chapter 22. Now in verse 1, it says of chapter 22, the book of Luke, now the feast of unleavened bread drew near, which is called the Passover. And the chief priests and the scribes were seeking how to put him to death, for they feared the people. So you have all of these people behind the scenes that are trying to figure out how to take out Jesus. And Jesus was not unaware of this. He had foretold his death. He had talked about the fact that he was going to be removed from this earth, that he would not be with them for a long time. He's fully God and fully man. He's experiencing all of the emotions of man, but he understands what's happening. So he would have known that these conversations were going on behind the scenes. And so he has this pending moment that he's well aware of. I mean, his week is packed full of stuff, and he knows that it's not going to end in a way that's pleasant. Like he is fully aware of that. And what does Jesus do in the middle of this? Right in the middle of the week, he stays the course, and every day he was teaching in the temple. And I love that about Jesus, that he stayed consistent throughout his entire time here on earth. I mean, we know that God is the God who never changes. He is the same God as he was yesterday, as he is today, as he will be tomorrow. And Jesus demonstrates this through day 4, Wednesday of that week. He demonstrates that he stays consistent in what he's doing. I preached an entire message on this earlier in the year where I talked about it's not what you do occasionally, it's what you do consistently that makes a difference. And Jesus really just shows this off right here. So as I'm getting prepared for Easter, and I mean that, both as far as making sure my message is ready and all of those things, but even more importantly, like making sure my heart is ready for Easter, I want to make sure that I'm staying consistent in the things that matter. Eric and I were just a few minutes ago, we were talking about the wild schedule that our family has right now with some of our girls in ballet and my son Ezra doing soccer, and just the whole rhythm of trying to keep this going and, make sure that we're still showing up to our group that meets in the middle of the week, and making sure we have family time and time around the table and family movie night and all those things. And it's this juggling act. But we have these certain pillars that are in our life that we are not going to abandon. There are certain family moments that we're not going to abandon because we want to build culture in our family. And so those are the non-negotiables in our home. So we were looking at how do we shift things to make sure those stay consistent. And Jesus stays consistent in his calling right here. He stays consistent in his teaching in the temple, regardless of all of the things that are going on around him. So I don't know how this message lands for you today. I don't know what Wednesday is looking like. I don't know what your schedule is like. I don't know what news you've just gotten, what news you're waiting to get. But I have a feeling that if you're like me and like the rest of humanity, there's always things pulling at you to distract you from keeping the main thing the main thing. So if I can encourage you with anything this morning, in the middle of the week, hump day, Wednesday, be like Jesus. What would Jesus do? You can take that little bracelet if you got it and you can look at it. And Jesus stayed consistent. So let us be people that follow God, not occasionally, but follow Jesus consistently.